Good morning. The topic today is caring for others. When I was a minister at Celebration Center for Spiritual Living, the names keep changing, so I have to remember which name. We were in, this was about over 10 years ago. We had people who rented out the space. Andrew Cohen, who was a spiritual teacher, and he had a workshop going, so I decided to do it. I didn't know many of the people in this workshop. It was extraordinary. I was set up. I was ready for the workshop. It was about moving into the state of oneness, and I was also on my own at that time teaching a class on meditation. So we were doing Thunder of Silence, which meant I would say teach is not. I was facilitating because we'd only talk for the first half hour about the book, and then we'd meditate for 2 hours in silence. And then the homework for every day was to meditate for an hour. I say that because I was in this state already, just doing a lot of meditation. So I go to this workshop, and it was an extraordinary workshop. We didn't pray in. We didn't meditate in terms of our traditional way of understanding meditation. He gave us a paragraph, and the paragraph could have been straight out of Ernest Holmes. In fact, I was looking for the credit to Ernest Holmes. I didn't see it, but it sounded just like him. And it was about the oneness of the universe and using this law of creativity. It's creating itself into form all of the time. Now, notice when I said that, I said it's creating itself into form. I'm talking about spirit. The instructions for this workshop, again, there's 30 of us sitting in a circle, was to talk as oneness, to not talk about oneness, not about oneness is, but as oneness. So that was the first direction. The second direction was we were not allowed to refer to anything we've ever read ever before. So we could not refer to any books, nor could we refer to any past experiences that we've ever had. We could only speak as oneness in the moment. It was hard to figure out how to do that. So there were some tries, and the facilitator would guide us, no, you're still sort of talking about it, speak as it. And the recognition is there's no way to speak as it and be linear. That as we start to speak as oneness, it shows up in a completely different way. And so as this conversation starts happening, the energy starts increasing in that room, and suddenly I'm experiencing this vortex of light and of joy and of bliss, and there's energy just popping from us, from whoever's speaking. It's just popping around the room. It was extraordinary. It was a bliss that lasted in me for 3 days. Just walking around in this extraordinary state of bliss just by speaking about oneness. What a glorious experience. I'm noticing this squeaks every time I stand there. The interesting thing about this experience was I did not crave to have it again. I did not hunger and thirst to experience. I loved it. I loved being in bliss. I loved it. There was the uncreated light. So what we mean by uncreated light is not light that comes from the sun. It's not light that comes from a light. It's light from another dimension. So I experienced the light. I experienced the bliss. It was wonderful, and yet I didn't want it again, and that made me curious. I've shared before my initial experience of the divine when I was a child. In Buddhism, they call it the Kensho experience, that initial awakening, was the experience of that same light, of just opening up to the vastness of the universe, but it was pure unconditional love, and it was pure unconditional love. It was extraordinary. It was the most extraordinary experience of my life, and defined my life, and that left me with a hunger and a starvation, a thirsting. I wanted that experience to understand it more, to have it more, to be able to move my life in greater alignment with that love. And so I started being in the inquiry of what was the difference, because they both had this extraordinary light, both was this vastness, both were incredibly positive. Why was I hungering and thirsting after one and not the other? Andrew Cohen, who was the creator of this workshop, would say, he was a spiritual teacher, he had a community up in Massachusetts, and he said he had a harder time working with women on this experience than men. And he said women had this natural resistance to just transcending. That the masculine generally, this is all generally speaking, let's clearly define terms. Masculine and feminine is in all of us. We all have different degrees. There's the feminine, and then there's the masculine, and all the various degrees within. But nobody's purely feminine. No one is purely masculine. So we have both. And only we get to determine, no one can determine for us how much of the masculine and feminine that we feel is moving through us. In general, he was talking about the feminine energy moving through women tended to resist this transcendent experience. So I thought it was interesting that he said that, because though I liked the experience, I didn't seek it out. What he said is women don't inherently like the idea of just pure transcendence. That we still think that this world is important, and to transcend it and leave everything behind isn't in alignment with the feminine nature. An example of this purely transcendent on one side is Ramana Maharshi. He was a guru in India in the 20th century, in the 1900s, and he's the stereotypical caricature of an Indian guru sitting on a mountaintop, because he literally did that. At 14, he went onto the mountaintop, sat in meditation, let all these waves of incarnation sweep through him until he just popped and he became completely free, and he never left the top of that mountain ever again, really. People came to him, wanted to be in his energy and his light, and he kept saying, it's just the I am. Everything came back to just know who you are. You are the I am that I am. Before any creation ever existed, in the midst of all creation and after all creation, I am. And that's the place from which he lived. He did not see it as something that he was called to do to get involved in the world, because as he said, when you have a dream at night, you wake up from it, you might get some lessons from it, but you don't spend a lot of time trying to change the dream. You don't get involved in the dream. You don't try to go back to sleep and get in the dream and say, because you know it's a dream. It's temporary. It comes and it goes. For him, that's what this world is. It's a big dream. Why engage in something that's just a dream? It has, ultimately, everything dissolves back into bliss. So why not just hang out in bliss all day and not get engaged in form? That's what I would say is purely transcendent spirituality, a purely, what I would say, masculine formation, an aspect of masculine formation. Interestingly, Andrew Cohen is not spiritually teaching in a community anymore, because he started getting charged with abuse. And the primary target of his abuse was towards women. This wasn't sexual abuse, but he would be very aggressive and assertive with them, because he would get so frustrated that they wouldn't do the things that he wanted them to do. They wouldn't just let go of themselves. And so he would push them. He was always pushing them to do very physical things that was destructive, and there became lawsuits, and he left. Remember what the assignment was, to get to that transcendent bliss. The way we got into that transcendent bliss was, don't talk about anything you've ever known. Don't talk about any books you've ever read. Basically, stop identifying with the human experience entirely. Be oneness, be in that bliss, and do not identify with the human experience. The experience I had as a child of this vast love, it had the same vastness. It had the same light. But the thing that was different is that it included all of life. I was so aware while I was in this expanded state of consciousness of my mother in the kitchen making dinner, which she did every single night for a family of 6, making dinner. That's what she did, out on the table. I still can see her in the kitchen while I'm in this other state of consciousness. I love my family. It's nothing compared to God's love, but I have this love for my family. That was part of it. I actually had this experience coming from the lowest point of my of feeling not enough, is when I opened up to this experience. So, whereas in Cohen's experience is you don't deal with any of that stuff. You just identify as the purity of oneness that's never felt bad. I actually experienced this divine love through feeling bad. It included my mom and included all that I was as human and was greater than that. And that's the experience that has moved me my entire life. One way they talk about that is transcend and include. That this entire life is about a marriage of the transcendent and the immanent, the infinite and the finite, the absolute and the relative. And we are in this dance always with knowing our freedom and our light and our joy that has never been hurt, harmed, or endangered ever, and at the same time feeling deeply into the experience of being a human being. I love Treya Wilbur as she was dealing with cancer, and she was on the spiritual journey, so there was a lot about that she was practicing about knowing her divine nature. And it was a moment of recognition when she realized not only was she one with everybody in our perfection, in our oneness, in our divine inheritance, but she was one with everybody in our suffering, that there's nobody been on this planet who hasn't suffered. And so there became that oneness of our humanity and our divinity that she started carrying within her being, which is why she had a huge impact on my life. I had an experience of oneness with the Divine Mother. I want to be clear that I was not suffering or having a negative experience of the Divine Father. I grew up in a traditional Christian upbringing, loved God. I didn't have an experience of a judgmental God. I only experienced God as loving, and it was always as a him. I have a great dad. I have 3 great brothers. I've had incredibly positive experiences around men. I wasn't angry at men. I wasn't saying I need to have something that affirms me as a woman. None of that. And yet, just in contemplating, well, I am a woman, and we're made in the image and likeness of God. And so if we're made in the image and likeness of God, God as first cause must be also the divine feminine. And just in that contemplation, suddenly I'm experiencing the divine feminine, and she comes and I am one in her energy and her vastness and extraordinariness. The thing that told me was that this is important. That understanding that the divine is also feminine is not just a by the way. It's not just, oh, and so it is. I know in our own teaching, there became we use a lot of masculine pronouns because that was when Ernest Holmes wrote. It wasn't, I don't think, against, I know it wasn't against women. It was just the tradition. It was the culture. I don't feel any difficulty around that. When they've updated the book, they've made it gender neutral. Instead of he, they use it. And I don't have a problem with that either. And I also think we don't want to skip over the stage of the divine as feminine. Acknowledging and seeing and making visible that the divine feminine is extremely important to this planet. It is the divine feminine that cares about creation. There is a visceral reaction that Andrew Cohen was feeling with women about we're not going to just walk away when people are in pain. We're not just going to transcend. As Andrew Harvey says, you're on your meditation pillow, you're in such bliss, you're of no earthly use. The divine feminine says, you matter. Life matters. We care. A student is asking Rumi about pain and sorrow, and Rumi's response is, stay with it. It's through the wound that the light enters. It's through the wound that the light enters. And it seems to me that so much of the feminine energy is about staying with it. That mothering energy, and whether you had a mother like this, if it wasn't your mother, somewhere you've had feminine energy in your life that has stayed with you, that has cared for you, that has nurtured you through the difficult times, not just in the transcendent times, look how great you are, but through our difficult times, through all aspects of life, the midwives, the caregivers, the hospice workers. So much of that is the feminine energy caring and nurturing life, caring about life. I actually hadn't thought about this. This is why Facebook is good. Someone put this out there. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about this. When Jesus was crucified, only one gospel has one disciple there. That's the Gospel of John. The other ones don't. But in all 4 gospels, both Marys are there. The disciples are gone. Who's there when he's getting crucified? It's the mother. It's the woman who stand by his side when he goes to the tomb. It's the women who are the first one there to help care for the body. They're the first people he shows himself to. It's the women who walk that journey. And I don't want to just say women because we know this feminine energy is in men as well. But it's that feminine face of God. And more than ever in our life, we need to be consciously acknowledging it. That's what is so glorious about this Me Too. It's saying, half our gender on the planet is feminine. They didn't come out of nowhere. It's this divine energy, and it's caring about all aspects of life. It's caring about not just your children, but other people's children. We have Mariah and Liliana. How much do we all love them? How much do we all think they're our kids, too? That is that nurturing energy when we care for the planet. Our planet is in crisis. Is not our planet in crisis right now? This climate change, that divine feminine energy doesn't just go into meditation and disassociate or transcend. Well, it's just a dream anyways. This planet isn't real anyways. We're all going to go into the infinite bliss of pure joy anyway, so why bother? The divine feminine energy says, no, I care profoundly and deeply about every atom and cell of all creation, and I'm here to show up and be the voice and to be the light and to be the action for our earth, for the animals, for the plants, for the children, for the people who are suffering, for the disabled, for all those who are invisible and have no voice. That feminine energy says, I see you. I care about all creation. And I so appreciate those claps because those claps are for you because you are that. I know so many of you and how much you show up to life and you care profoundly and deeply for the people in your life, for creation itself. You're not passive. You're not just sitting there passively saying what's the best thing or theoretically. You are involved, you are participating, you are giving everything of you can to make this world a better place. We give thanks and honor to all the women, to all that feminine divine mother energy. We see it, we acknowledge it, and we celebrate it. We are needed now more than ever. Dang, this is like the shortest talk I've ever given, but it's so... It's what we need to see and what we need to know. So let's just close our eyes. And I want us first to acknowledge whatever mother energy has been in our life, whether it's our own mother or as that mothering energy has come through other people. However that mother energy has come to you, for all aspects of it, feeding, making sure you were fed when you were growing up, getting clothed, and then that mother energy that took it to the next level, that cared about who you were, your spirit, your soul. And think of the individuals who have been that role for you, that have said your life matters, your creation, your unique self matters. And I want us to give thanks from the depths of our being. So we're just going to spend a moment of silence thanking that divine mother through these gifts, through these people, in the depths of our heart and soul. And as we give thanks, these are mothers on the other side of the veil. It's this side of the veil. I want you to acknowledge this divine mother aspect within you. For I know she is alive in each and every one of us. For those times where we just will not stop caring, even there seems like it's impossible to care anymore, that it hurts too much, that it's too hard, it's too painful, we continue to show up and care. When we get to celebrate with those things, when all aspects of this human existence, and we just continue to show up and care with our whole heart and soul, we are involved in creation. We care. We have a visceral reaction. This world matters, and every atom and cell of this world matters. That's within each of us now. Let us honor that today. from this place of gratitude, we just give thanks, and we know that this divine mother presence is in, through, and as all creation. There is no place where it stops and something else begins. That she is alive and awake in, through, and as all creation. She transcends all creation, and yet her love, her passion, her care, her intention is in all creation. She is alive and awake, nurturing her form, her way of showing up, and it matters. Every cell, atom cell matters. And even when creation continues to be painful, even when creation and our own creation, we're not what we want it to be. We feel like we don't care enough. We don't do enough. We should do more. That behind that is just the intention to love everything with all our heart, body, mind, and soul, to give everything that we possibly can and care for the other. We care, and it makes all the difference in the world. For all those mothers, that divine feminine energy, our mothers, our friends' mothers, our community mothers that show up in our communities, for all the mothering energy that are in more and more entering our political world, for all that divine mothering energy that is now showing up in more visible ways than ever before. It's always been there. We just celebrate and we give thanks. And we give thanks that if we are in this divine feminine energy, as we feel this divine mother actively showing up and saying yes and not being willing to be invisible anymore, that she's here to shine her light in, through, and as each and every one of us, that we know that those who have been invisible are seen and appreciated and valued more than they've ever been appreciated before. For we know that everything matters, and we are that light. We are that light. We are that love. We are the divine caring for itself beyond our wildest imagination, because it is not a small us, but the infinite vastness of pure love, this love that integrates the vastness with this beautiful, beautiful form of creation. For that light and for that love and for that joy and for that harmony and for that vastness and for that particularity and specificity, we give thanks. We are it now. Thank you, Divine Mother, Father, God, infinite love, intelligence of the universe, for all the love that we cannot even begin to lasso with the concept, and yet is fully alive as each of us. I just say thank you, thank you, thank you, infinite divine Mother God. And we release this word into the law of life, knowing that as it is spoken, it is done. And I invite us all to say together, and so it is. Amen.
And so it is. And so it is. And so it is. Amen. 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 And so it is.
I was looking around to see how many men we have in the room. Can the men that are here, can you just come forward here? Can the men come forward?
What?
All right. Look at, see? They're clapping for you. It's their day. What I'm asking you to come up and do, men, is we have all these beautiful women out here, right? Aren't we so grateful for every single one of them? I'm going to ask you to put out your hands. And women, you're receiving. You're putting out to receive. And so, men, you're going to repeat after me. Beloved ones, we see you. We see your light. All right, man, you have to speak up louder here. We see your power. You are essential to this universe. You are essential to the people in your life. You are essential to your community. You are a gift wherever you are. We know your heart. We know your tenderness. We know how deeply you care. We are forever grateful, and we cannot say thank you enough. We love you, and we bless you, and we thank God for you. Have the best day and year ever. And so it is.